everybody, what's up? Jim Cyril and Tanya Klein here from Coverage Inc., the leader in screenplay analysis, development, and editing services since 2002. Good day, Tanya. How are you today?
Very well. How about yourself?
I am great, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you got for us today. What's the topic? What are we talking about?
So today we will be talking about 10 scripts you should not write if you want to break into this business.
Oh, all right. Looking forward to this one.
So when it comes to 10 scripts, we're talking mainly about 10 genres.
And we're talking mostly about Hollywood here, like as a spec, writing a feature spec for Hollywood, specifically agents, managers, and producers, what they're looking for versus what they're generally not looking for. There's exceptions to every one of these that we're about to tell you, and a lot of those exceptions have to do with if you have any heat on you, if you've got a track record, if you're already represented, any of those things can make a difference if you've got an attachment. But just if you're coming in cold, and let's say you're querying producers or managers or agents, you will probably have less of a chance if your spec script is one of these 10, right? That we're about to mention.
Okay, let's start with Westerns.
Westerns, number 10. Okay, so here's the deal with Westerns. Look, everybody loves a good Western. There is nobody saying that Westerns are not beloved, but what they are not at the moment is popular as specs. They're just, their day is considered over by many people. I mean, they were great back in the 50s, the 60s. They were a mainstay. They were a staple everywhere. And now there's just less and less of them. And that's because they're not rewarded generally at the box office. And so now mostly you'll see them as TV movies or for streaming. And they'll be done relatively cheaply.
Even more than that, they've become TV series. So nowadays, if it's a Western, most likely it will be a TV show. And because some of those TV shows have been quite successful, starting from, Deadwood to Hell on Wheels.
Hell on Wheels, yeah.
So, but as movies, not so much anymore.
Yeah, tough ask, again, as a spec script. Look, if you go and shoot it yourself and it's great, you'll probably find an indie distributor and you'll probably make money on it. But just asking a rep or a producer to roll the dice on it, they tell us all the time, this isn't what we're looking for.
Exactly.
All right, what's next?
Next, World War II movies.
Oh boy. This is a tough
Steven
one.
Spielberg. Basically, that's what it comes down to. Who's probably the only person who can get a World War II movie made.
Okay, so this is, it's kind of like the same category as Westerns, where they used to be super popular. They used to make them all the time as features, and not so much anymore. Whenever they do make them, they're not really responded to that well. And look, they still do get made. If you're a big prestige filmmaker, you can probably push one forward and get it made. And look, we do still see them every year or two. Someone will come out with another big one. But here in the USA, they are a tough ask. Now, EU, that's a different story. They still love their World War II movies. They've got that heritage there. That's part of their...
Jim, even in the EU, that is going away. And that is going away, it has gone away here. It's going away in the EU because World War II movies are very expensive. We are talking huge budget movies usually.
Yeah, but they have all the locations there. They have they have the sets, they have the buildings. It's a lot easier for them to do that. Plus, incentives, in-country incentives, where, you can make a World War II movie for, 2 million euro in the EU. You can't do that here.
Well, not for 2 million euro nowadays. And but again, the problem is also the EU isn't making them really nowadays. They're making them also, if they're doing anything World War II related, it's become a TV show as well. So that is,
it's tough no matter how you slice it as a spec, which is what we're talking about. People just are like, I can't sell these. That's why it's on this list.
Exactly. So you're talking two things: big budget and the marketability is not there. So
And
two
the desire
problems.
to read is
Yeah.
not there because even if the script is great, a producer is going to go, "Oh, do I really want to push this boulder up the hill and spend the next 17 years of my life trying to get this movie made?"
Yeah. All right. Next, broad comedy.
Broad comedy. Oh, one of my favorite genres.
Well, it doesn't travel all that well.
Yeah, it doesn't travel all that well, and again, hasn't been rewarded of late at the box office. There used to be great comedies coming out, and frankly, I would expand this to comedy in general. There used to be great comedies all the time, every summer. And the past couple that they've come out with, the Spinal Tap sequel, Fackham Hall, the Naked Gun reboot, they've all underwhelmed. The people haven't been there to support them, and that's really disappointing because actually all of those movies are good. All three that I just mentioned, and I just read that Fackham Hall, because of streaming, has just edged over into break even, which is like, this movie should have made $100 million at the U.S. box office easily. So it's a tough time for broad comedies right now. People just think that they can't sell them.
Yeah, and I mean, addendum about Naked Gun. I mean, they call it a success, but it underwhelmed at the box office,
Yeah.
considering what they were hoping for, it seems.
Yeah, a bit disappointing.
Yeah. Okay, next one. Superhero movies. And now let's
Oh,
be very specific. Unbranded superhero movies. In other
yeah.
words, if you create a superhero and you write a script about that superhero, yeah,
Can't give them away. Can't give them away. Look, there's so many well-known characters from, Dark Horse, DC, Marvel, Image, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that the industry just thinks, why would we roll the dice on a character we've never heard of before when there's thousands of characters that are well known or partially well known that are established IP? It just doesn't make any sense.
exactly. And again,
And
big budget, very big budget.
right, the budgets required are huge, and the fact is people are burned out on superhero movies. I mean, look, everybody, the Superman reboot, the James Gunn's Superman by James Gunn from last summer, which was, it was okay, I guess. But it barely broke even. I think it made around 600 mil worldwide with all the marketing costs, production costs, et cetera, et cetera. That's barely breaking even. This is a Superman movie, okay? The king of superheroes. I mean, I guess we'll see what's up with the new Avengers and see if people respond to that. But there's not a lot of excitement out there for it.
No, I think that has, that's gone.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. What's
Next,
next?
legal thrillers.
Number 6, legal thrillers. Okay. Well, Tanya, one of my favorite shows is Lincoln Lawyer, and that's on TV.
Yes, and that's the reason why, as a spec, a feature spec, it's problematic because legal thrillers have become the purview of TV.
Yeah, that's really what it comes down to. I mean, unless you're adapting, a Grisham novel, you've got the rights, or, a well-known novel, it's hard to visualize this as a movie that people will go to. I mean, they're not really made as features anymore. So it's a tough place. It's a tough one. Tough ask.
Yeah.
Tough ask.
Right. Number 5, animation.
Okay. Animation. We walked right into this one, didn't we, Tanya?
Well, we did. Yeah, we walked into that a few years ago.
Yeah.
But okay, so here's the thing. Animation is expensive, and animation is done by a very small number of places. And to get animation done, you have to be in that orbit of that very small number of places, and that yes, they develop in-house. They do not actually buy scripts. Usually they develop them in-house, for
Yeah.
better or worse. Let's.
Yeah, exactly. And look, on the indie side, you might have a chance. There's animation companies in, Canada and India and, all over the EU that, do make independent animated feature movies. Again, we are talking trying to sell to Hollywood as a spec. Will people be interested in this? Over the past couple of years in our Get Rep Now promotion, we have had several animated feature specs as well as a couple of TV animation scripts. We can get them read. It's a little tough. I mean, generally, usually only 2 or 3 of the managers out of a panel of 15 even deign to read them. And that's because they know how hard it is to sell. But, they're willing to read them as writing samples because, I mean, if it's comedy animation, if you can write animated comedy, you can write comedy. And that means you might be able to get staffed on a TV show possibly. But again, tough ask. It's just not a spec that people generally want to read. Look, the picture is going to be changing. It's changing under our feet right now because of AI.
Yeah.
And a lot of what we know about animation production is no longer true. So, the cost, the time, all of that stuff that used to be true with animation is or may change very soon. It's an open question right now as to whether the viewing public will accept AI in any real form other than, like sea dance videos on YouTube featuring, Tom Cruise against Jackie Chan or whatever it is. People will watch that. Of course, it's free. It's like 5 minutes. It's fun. It's cool. But will they embrace AI in, for example, a full animated feature? I guess we'll probably have the answer to that pretty soon.
Yeah. Next up, fantasy. And that's for, well, basically the same reasons as all the others. Number one,
Yeah.
huge budget usually. And number two, not branded. In other words, not based on IP like a novel.
All the big successful fantasy movies of, ever have all been based on successful books. I can't think of one that wasn't, even going back to the 80s. Never-Ending Story, that was a book series, wasn't it?
And not a series, it was a book.
Yeah, Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe.
That was a book series based on a book series, yeah.
Yeah, and of course Harry Potter, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
They're all based on successful IP. And, we do get people who write these big, expensive fantasy spec scripts, and they send them to us not based on IP. And some of them have been pretty good. But what are you going to do with them? You can't look. I mean, I hate to say this, but really the only chance for something like that is, consider writing it as a book first, create your own IP. And then if it's successful, if you can get it published, if it's develops a fan base, then you can get the movie made, But otherwise, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
Tough one.
Next one, number 3, dramas. So a few caveats here. So a drama, as I'm sure you know, is always a lot more difficult to sell or to even get someone to read it. One of the big problems with dramas, and because I love dramas, in fact, today I was looking over a list of, some of my favorite films, because we're actually planning on doing a video of what are our favorite films and why. And so a few on my list are things like Short Term 12 or The Station Agent, both of which are, dramas, by the way, indie dramas, but very engaging, involving stories. That is not necessarily true for most dramas. Often dramas can be, as I said, navel-gazing and dour and cannot have an actual forward momentum. So dramas are problematic.
So let's talk. I mean, there's so many different kinds of dramas, right? So we've got, we've got period dramas, we've got coming of age dramas, we've got, somebody gets sick and is dying dramas, we've got relationship dramas, romantic dramas, we've got, feuding parents getting divorced dramas. There's so many different types of drama. And the one thing they all have in common is that they are all tough sells. And that is again because they have not been rewarded at the box office when they've been made, which is not all that often because of thank you studios and media consolidation over the last 20 years. So, but they do get made for streaming. That does happen. And what you just said, Tanya, about a lot of them not being that great as specs. Yes, of course that's true. And I would say particularly, let's say the coming of age drama is a key one. I mean, look, they do get made all the time, and that tends to be from auteur directors who think that their youth, generally men, not always, but who think that their youth is something special and interesting and exciting.
Yes, we know you find your navel very interesting. The rest of the world might not. So that is usually a problem with dramas. However, if you have a drama spec that you really want to see get done, then
make it.
Yes, I mean, basically nowadays a lot of people are investigating alternative ways to distribution and alternative ways to raising funds. And one of the big things is to find your audience before you plan on shooting. Right. Find your audience during the pre-production or even before pre-production in the process, so they can be part of this the entire way, and that they will be also your built-in audience at the end. So you do have a path to breaking even or profitability.
Yes, that is key. So many of the dramas that you will see nowadays started as independent films made through, Bank of Dad or, Kickstarter, or, the director financing himself or herself or whatever. Any of those things, grants, and getting it done by hook or by crook, and then they put it out onto the festival circuit, and it's great, and it wins awards, and it gets some momentum. And then people become aware of this because of its festival laurels.
And also, let's not forget sponsorships, which is where finding your audience prior to your movie comes in. And like, what is your movie about? What specific segment of the population with, this particular problem or this particular interest are you aiming at, and where do they gather? What organizations do they have? So find sponsorships. And I mean, even if you don't, do the festival circuit, or the festival circuit is not too kind to you, you can four-wall it. Another a way that people find their audience and make money is by traveling with the movie throughout the country.
Yeah. And four-walling, just for those who don't know that term, that means renting out a theater to show your movie and then doing everything you can to get people to show. If you're able to sell out in city after city, quite a few people do this, by the way, and it actually works. It will, gain the attention of the industry, hopefully over time, and, get some distribution. So look, the one good thing about most dramas is that they are relatively cheap to shoot. I mean, obviously, if it's going to be, a World War II drama, that's not going to be the case. But, if it's a drama with 2 or 3 people, look at doing it yourself, because guess what? The industry is not going to be interested in it as a spec. They're going to say, what else have you got?
Yeah. All right, number 2, period, anything. And again, for the same reasons that, we keep mentioning, period, you have a higher budget because you need period settings, period costumes. And then number 2, marketability. Often period pieces are not rewarded at the box office.
Yeah, this is a really tough one because, look, I mean, there's tons of period stuff all the time. There's, I mean, on TV in particular, look, there's lots of series that are set in the past, or, they seem to have no problem, shooting stuff that takes place in the 1970s or the 1920s or whatever. We are talking industry perception of your spec, regardless of genre. here's a great example, right? So last year, Tanya, we had what I think three horror scripts
Mm-hmm.
on our Get Rep Now list of
Like,
considers,
yeah.
right? And of those three horror scripts, two of them were period. And the amount of managers who wanted to read the one that was not period was two or three times higher than the amount of managers who wanted to read the two that were.
And
The one,
please note, hang on, but please note that horror, very, very, very marketable genre, and not even period
yeah,
horror scripts, which, by the way, all of them were fairly cheap to
yeah,
make
affordable.
because,
Yeah,
I mean, especially one of them, she did it so smartly because it was literally like one
yeah, it
cabin.
was contained, super contained. Yeah, but it's mindset
Yeah,
over reality. Look, people, look, there's absolutely a way to shoot period stuff relatively inexpensively, like if you do
yeah,
what Tanya said. Some costumes, great. You rent some costumes. That's
yeah.
it's a lot cheaper than a laser battle, or something, or even
Or
just a
even
tradition.
somebody walking down the street in current, present day Los Angeles,
Right, with permits,
Yeah,
and the police have to lock off the street, or even just a fight scene where you need trained stunt professionals, and those people are not cheap, by the way. So yeah, but that doesn't matter. It's people's mindset. They hear period, they go, it's partly because they think expensive. It's partly because they think it's just not going to be as appealing to people as something contemporary, which may not always be true. Look at The Witch, right, Tanya?
yeah.
So The Witch was period, old timey dialogue, and is sort of very esoteric, and it was a big hit.
Yeah.
Big hit, launched Egger's career. You know, and now the dude is making big budget movies, fantastic movies. Nothing against Robert Eggers. The Witch was a good movie. It got made. I don't know how it got made. That's probably something we should look into because
Yeah.
I'd be interested to know.
Yeah. And number one, anything involving a screenwriter. Okay. So here's the thing. You're not Robert Altman. Okay, so there's nothing this industry hates more than anything self-referential.
Yeah.
And I mean, look, we get it because let's face it, we look at scripts written by screenwriters, and so they're going, with, write what you know. It's a world they know very well, so of course they're using it, but just don't.
The industry does not want these. We have been told over and over again over a period of decades.
Yeah.
One of the first pieces of advice that I got from a producer, a fellow named John Marsh, excellent producer who made I Love You to Death, many V.I. Warshawski, many great movies back in the day. We were friends for a while, and he once told me, Jimmy, what you don't want to do is ever make a screenwriter your main character, and here's why. He's like, every year the film schools graduate, 5,000, 10,000 people. And those people come out of school and they've got no practical life experience. So what do they write for their first script? A movie about a screenwriter who gets into trouble. There's nothing we can do with these. It's like it comes in, we look, we go, nope, throw it aside. That's it. And this is still true to this day. But the other part of it is, in addition to the overload of this, that of something that people just don't want in the first place, is that Hollywood perceives this as a form of elitism, where they think that the average person in Nebraska or Switzerland or wherever worldwide doesn't care about the inside baseball machinations of the movie business, which I think is an excuse because excuse one that I just gave you, they're just not interested in making these movies. And they certainly don't give a shit about screenwriters. That's the last thing they want to do. Oh my God, a struggling screenwriter. Right?
Okay, so if you currently have a script with, a screenwriter who gets into trouble, okay, so some very easy fixes. Make him another creative, make him a painter, make him a novelist, make him a, a video game designer.
Yeah, TikToker, be contemporary, YouTuber, influencer, anything creative that's not writing screenplays. Oh my God. A journalist, they can still be a writer, just not a screenwriter.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, this is, oh, well, we have one bonus, which
One
is,
bonus one.
yeah,
All right, lay it on us. What's the bonus?
it comes back to you're not Robert Altman. Ensemble.
Oh, ensembles. Okay, so let me explain this one. Ensembles are not spec scripts. That is a direct quote from Ava Jamshidi, who is a well-known manager, producer. She told me this back in the day, probably 15, 16 years ago when I was writing my agent's hot sheet column for Creative Screenwriting magazine. It is still true. What the industry wants is a single protagonist driven story with a high stakes quest. Doesn't need to be like, the world is going to end. It could just be the stakes are high to the protagonist, but and doesn't mean you can't have subplots, but when you try to Tarantino it, the industry rolls their eyes and they go, this is not a spec script. That's a TV pilot. This is what people think. Of course, this is not always true. Of course, there's exceptions. Of course, there's many great freaking ensemble movies that get made. Was that one we just saw, Tanya? The Paul Haggis one.
Crash?
Crash! What a great freaking movie. Or how about Love Actually, right? Another fantastic, well-received ensemble movie. Look, the advice that we're giving you is just what people have told us, what the industry reactions tend to be. Of course, there are fantastic ensemble movies that exist out there, but in terms of shopping them to Hollywood as a spec.
Yeah. So, yeah, again, look, people, this is about breaking into the business. And what you're trying to do is extremely difficult.
Yeah.
So don't make it harder on yourself.
Yeah, maximize your odds. Look, we're not telling you don't write these things. I mean, I guess we are. I guess we are telling you don't write these things. But what we are telling you is if you do, it's going to be most likely harder to get people to read them unless you're well connected, unless you've got, a high profile agent or manager who's willing to push that boulder up the hill for you. It's just going to be harder. But, we wish you luck, and we don't want to quash anyone's creativity. We're just telling you what the biz tells us.
If you have any questions, you can email us at info@coverageinc.com.
That's Inc with a K. Thanks for watching, folks. Please hit that like button and please hit the notification bell because that tells the algorithm that we exist. And we will see all of you guys in the next video.
There he is. Where? There. What, behind the rabbit? There is the rabbit.